Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we're live on a Friday afternoon, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And the feeling that I want to talk about today is the feeling about being more aware. And, this comes up quite regularly, but you cannot visit it too often. The more aware you are of what is going on, what the universe is bringing you, it's amazing. If you stay aware, things that you've been planning for a long time suddenly fall into place, and you're going, how did that happen? And you're going, because I'm aware of what it is I want to have happen. And so, from that perspective, we're going to be talking about that in a second. I'm not aware just of any birthdays this week. So if you're a regular Dear Mama Sal viewer, or you watch on the replay regularly, and you have a birthday this week, please let me know so that I can add you to our database, or have Jody do that. All right. So um, for those of you who maybe have not been to Dear Mama Sal before, it's not just me. We're a group of people who get together um, a couple of times a week to talk about coping with our lives. And on Friday afternoons, we talk about coping with feelings. And then on Sunday afternoon, we talk about coping with stress. And we both have feelings, and they are perfectly okay, good, bad, or ugly. And we all have stress, and that's perfectly okay as long as you know how to manage it. And so, what we do is we, as a group, hold each other's hand as we go through life, because you always think that you're the only one that has these things happen to you, and it's not true. Yeah, we all do. So, I found this quote and I loved it. It said, Stephen Covey, by the way, he said, every human has four endowments: self awareness, conscious, independent will, and creative imagination. These give us the ultimate human freedom, the power to choose, to respond, to change. You see, if you are not aware, then you blame everybody else. It's very amazing. Once you become aware, you realize that, you have more control over things than you think you do. But it's easier to blame everybody else, right? As somebody once said to me, Sal, ignorance was bliss. I loved it when I can blame everybody else for my stuff. And I said, well, sorry, that train just left the station. You're no longer, once you've reached awareness, you can't go back and pretend you haven't got it. Hi there, Jody. Jody is our admin, for those of you who don't know. And she's saying, I'm aware that I think you're pretty fabulous. Well, hello. Isn't that wonderful? Um, so, today what I wanted to do is give you a couple of stories around this, because I think it's important, um, not just to talk about it, but also to have the real life stories around it. So, um, Dean Ornish said that awareness is the first step to healing. All right. And think about that. If you are trying to fix something in your life, maybe you're envious, maybe you are angry, maybe you are whatever. Being aware that that's going on is the first step to fixing it. If you're not aware, then you can't fix it. So, and the other thing that I found was that, oh, well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me first of all thank you for your understanding about the fact that I needed to cancel a few broadcasts again recently. And for those of you who don't know, I have been struggling. I got cancer last year, and they put me on a drug that my body reacted very badly to. And so I had a lot of problems going on. And then they gave me a month off after 6 months of struggling with the other drug. They gave me a month off and then put me on a new drug. And I'm delighted to tell you that the new drug is doing really well. I'm really happy with it. It's very different. It feels very different. And the good news is I don't feel that it's um, messing with my energy or my creativity, which the other one really did. Um, so the only thing that I have noticed is um, that every now and then I get a little bit nauseous, and that's not fun, but it's surely a lot better than the brain fog and the other things that I had. I also find, in, but that's a life thing, that if I overdo it, I end up paying the price, and that's what I did. What I found was, and I was talking to Ciora, who comes in to help me with my garden, and I was saying to her, it's funny, I've had to cancel more broadcasts since I've had you around than I have in the last 10 years. And I said, I'm telling you this, not that it's your fault, because it isn't. But I said, I am aware that every Thursday, we do all this downsizing and the boxes. And I am aware that I say I will do 2 boxes or 4 boxes or whatever it is that I start the day saying. And then we get excited and we end up doing a whole lot more. And then what she doesn't see is that I pay the price for it later. Now, that's not her fault. Do you all agree? Because I am an adult, and if I say I want to do 2 boxes and I do more than 2, who is to blame? It sure as heck isn't her. So I said to her, I want to apologize because in advance, because you're going to find that I'm going to get a lot tougher about the fact that I'm only going to do so many boxes. But the good news is, I cannot tell you how exciting it is that we are nearly through the whole of the shed. And what is left can wait until next year, if necessary. I'm not worried about it. And I've managed to get most of the deck tidied up again. And yeah, I've got a whole lot of boxes in my bedroom at the moment that I'm sorting through. But I'm literally going through a box a week, and that's my goal. So being overwhelmed, I do pay the price for overwhelming myself, and that is still true on this drug. So, but hey, you know what I mean? It's like I'm a lot better off than I was. That's for sure. So, I had a similar story that came up this week, and I wanted to share because it's also true of this topic about being aware. Somebody phoned me, or would talk to me, texted me about the fact that their brother had called them or texted them and said that she needed to take 3 weeks off to go and house sit for their father, while the brother took the father off to go house hunting. Not would it suit you or when would it suit you or whatever. No, just these are the weeks. And so luckily, that person decided to vent with me. And I said, if you have agreed to it, it's not that your brother's a bad person. And she said, what? And I said, if you have agreed to it, stop blaming him. Can any of you see that? Are you aware of what I'm saying? That if you agreed to it, it's on you. It's not on them. So she said, yes, but if I don't, then I said, oh, guilt, right? So shame and guilt come in here. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, it's still on you, not on him. If he manages to manipulate you, then the person you need to look at is you, not him. Because I said, I assure you, a lot of people tried to manipulate me. So I said, if you, hi, Jeannie, good to see you. How's Stella? Stella's her dog, new dog. So I said, if you have problems with him manipulating you and you can't control it, maybe your husband can talk to him. Now, the reason I said this is what I haven't added to the story is that the woman that I was talking to is a cancer patient and seriously has a lot going on. This isn't a survivor, just a survivor. She still has cancer. And it is, she just had a whole lot of tests done and she still has a whole lot more that has to happen. And it's not looking good. And therefore, you can imagine she is a tired lady. And she's, fighting to save her life at the moment. And yet, not only did the brother say, you will go and house sit for by the way, she has to drive 5 hours to where daddy lives. And then she house sit in a house that doesn't have internet or Wi-Fi. Yeah, hello. Can you imagine that in this day and age? And so then, um, not only that, but she needs to pack up the daddy's house while she's there. She's sick, people. So I said to her again, if you haven't got the sphericals, those round things that you bounce, if you haven't got the sphericals to tell your brother no, don't blame your brother. And then I sort of thought about it and I said, I've got to ask you another question. Is there any chance that your brother has never heard you say no? Because it sounds to me like he's pretty used to getting his way. And that's why I'm suggesting if you can't tell him no, please have your husband tell him no. Because I'm certain he won't mind doing that. And it was interesting because she sort of started to get it, that, she was party to this if she kept saying yes. So the next thing I knew was that she changed the rules. Yes, she would go, but only for 2 weeks. And that the 2 weeks was solid. I was really proud of her for that. She said, I will be leaving on this date, regardless of what you tell me is going on that date. All right? I will be leaving on that date. So don't try and, guilt me into or shame me into staying longer because I won't be able to. I will be gone early in the morning on this date, come rain or shine or whatever. I went, that's really good. That's called a solid boundary. I'm very proud of you. This is an improvement. And, I thought it was just so exciting to hear her do that. Yeah, Jodie's saying that. Let me just see here. Jeannie's saying Stella, her dog, is great. Went to the doctors for neck muscle pain. Friend is bringing muscle relaxant meds pretty soon. Very painful. Yes. Did you cricket during the night or something, Jeannie? Because that is horrible. I've done that myself. Where you wake up and you go, what happened to my neck? And it's, undoubtedly because I turned nastily. Lao-Tzu, who I quote quite often, said the key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. All right. So can you see that this friend of mine got some serious awareness this week about the fact that this wasn't about her brother and it was about her. Now, what I did, and some of you know this of me because you've had me do it, is I always ask for permission. I just like, some people don't want to know. And one of the things that I said was, I do have some input, but I need your permission to give it because, not everybody wants it. And she said, sure, go right ahead. So I did. And, it was just, she thanked me. I was quite surprised. She actually didn't thank me at the moment, but, she obviously went away and processed it and thought about it and came back and said, I really want to thank you for your input because I can see that it makes a lot of sense. So there was part of me that goes, what sort of brother asks his sick sister to do all this stuff, right? And the interesting thing was that she said, that big packing list that I was meant to do while I was there? And I said, yes. She said, that's now come down so dramatically, I can probably get it done in a day. And I went, now we're talking. So, I look at it and I go, if we don't look after ourselves, I think Jody, way back when, was very big in reminding me that I am my own best advocate, right? In other words, that, don't think that if you've got a pain that the doctor thinks is in your head and not a real pain, you keep going until somebody helps you with that pain, right? It's just like, don't stop. You know your body better than anybody. And what I found really interesting in this whole cancer journey is that I am amazed how many times the oncologist type people say to me, "You are really aware of your body." And I went, "Well, yeah, I've lived with it a long time. I know which aches and pains have been going on for the longest time, and I know which ones haven't." And so to me, this is like, it's really important to be aware of that. If you suddenly get a twinge in your left big toe and you don't normally have a twinge there, there's a reason for it, right? And it's a good idea to have it checked out. Now, it was also said that the first step towards change is awareness. And the second step is acceptance, all right? How many of you know that one where intellectually you understand something? And, how many years did I understand that smoking was bad for me? Really bad for me. But I actually didn't have the mindset to be able to quit. Now, I tried everything there was. Don't get me wrong. I tried to quit smoking from about the age of 20 something. And everything they brought out that would help me stop smoking, I tried it. I had the acupuncture, I had the patch, I had the, what else? Oh yeah, the Wellbutrin, you name it. Everything they came out with and said, and it helps you to stop smoking. I tried it, but I didn't stop smoking. And of course, the reason for that is that although I thought I wanted to quit smoking, what I didn't realize was I hadn't done enough work on the things that caused me to smoke. And that is an awareness that, came to me pretty late. And then I want to tell you, when they brought out the vape things, I really loved that. Because what I did is I started to vape instead of smoke at certain times of the day. In other words, what I call the mindless times, when I'd get into the car and automatically light a cigarette. And so what I said was, you can get into the car, but, until the second traffic light, you vape, you don't light a cigarette. But you can light one after the second traffic light. And then the next month, it was the third traffic light. And then eventually I could drive all the way to work without lighting a cigarette. And, when I was on the computer, another place where I used to mindlessly smoke, I could, I used to say, you can, work at the computer, but you cannot smoke. If you want to smoke, you need to get away from the computer and go outside and have a cigarette. So it was an awareness of the fact that I was smoking without thinking. I think the other thing I'm really aware of at the moment is my day. And I'm really trying to make myself more and more aware of what I'm doing every hour of the day. How much of my day am I wasting? And how much day am I being productive? And because I am checking on that on a regular basis, like every hour, what have I done in the last hour? And what I found is it gets me off my butt and doing things. And I think some of you know, I have what I call a rotation. All right. So every hour when I get off my butt and start doing things, I will start at the back of the house, which is my ensuite bathroom, go there and go, is it tidy yet? Yet, right? I don't have to totally tidy it. Just every time I go there, it's just like, let's do one more tidy there. Is the bedroom, one more thing to tidy in the bedroom. Go into the studio, tidy up one more thing in the studio. By the way, people, we are getting there. We're down to about 3 boxes in the studio that are from the big unpack, and then that's clear. So then I go to the craft room, one more thing. You don't have to tidy up the whole craft room, just tidy up one more thing. Just know that you did one thing there. In the guest bathroom, in the laundry room, in the kitchen, in the dining room. If I do a complete rotation, and I am amazed by being aware of the time and being aware that I control that time. Uh, my house is beginning. So I've got a long way to go yet to get more organized and cleaner in places that hadn't been cleaned for quite a while. And it's amazing, quite honestly. Hi, Jonas. Good to see you. I think it's Jonas, right? Um, Good to see you there. So, do you understand that being able to talk about stuff, like for example, if you feel you're being manipulated, being able to talk about it is a really good thing, because it really is one of the first steps. It's like awareness, and it doesn't matter. And that's what I said to this friend of mine, which was, you know, I'm telling you that you are being manipulated, not because I want to guilt you. I just need you to be aware. And by the way, that manipulation will continue until one day you're going to learn that the word no is a complete sentence. And what do I mean by that? It means you don't have to justify why you said no. That's the thing that we get caught up on, right? Is I don't want to lie. You don't have to. Just say no. Um, Maslow from the hierarchy of needs, he said, what is necessary to change a person is to change his or her awareness of himself. All right. So being aware is actually the key to so many things. And so the question that I had was, do you see that this brother of yours is pulling your strings? You've become a puppet to him. And that's probably because you've never said no to him. And so I need to warn you that when you start saying no to him, he's going to really get angry because he's not used to it. The other thing he will do is he will go into serious manipulation and guilt, because that's what people do when they can't get their way. If you ever said no to him, you don't have the words to come back at him with politely. And why do we not say no? We don't say no because we don't want to upset them, right? And so what I said is that you need to be a broken record. If you say no and then they go, yeah, but if you do this, then da, 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 and you can hear the you can feel a manipulation, right? Have any of you felt a manipulation? You can sort of feel it in your body as the guilt starts eating at you. And so what I learned to do, and I can't remember how I learned this, but I learned to do it, which is as soon as I could feel that feeling of being manipulated, I just take a deep breath and wait and let them talk it out, to let them do their guilt trip. And then at the end of it, I would say, and I do this quite regularly, I don't know if you heard me at the beginning, but I actually said no. And by the way, I just heard your manipulation. And that does not change my answer, which was no. And then, they'll probably get angry. And then you say, and now I heard you get angry at me, which is another form of manipulation. And my answer is still no. And I said, if you do it enough times, like a broken record, eventually they may even throw the phone down at you. But don't worry about it. It's because they can't get their way. They haven't been able to manipulate you, and that's caused the anger, and that's why they will do that. And she said, but I can't afford to lose that relationship with my brother. I've already, lost a relationship with my sister. And I said, you know something? You don't have a relationship with your brother. If he manipulates you to that degree, that's not a relationship. That's a control factor. And so therefore, two things I'd like to tell you. Number one is, if you have a relationship with your brother, the fact that you set the boundary will not change that. He may get snippy for a while, but eventually he'll come around, especially if you carry on treating him like a brother. And eventually it will happen, or not. And if he doesn't, then we know that his ego is bigger than his rationality. So be aware that you're going to probably get called a few names as well. Have you noticed that people do that? You're so inconsiderate, or you're so this, you're so that, you're so that. And then I go, I just heard all the names you called me, and the answer is still no. Broken record. Now, if you take a deep breath, you might want to ask me, what can I do? And I will let you know if you're interested. But if you're not interested, then the answer is still no. And I cannot tell you the freedom in that. The most incredible freedom in that. And I found the same thing. I've told you about this before, and I will continue to tell you, whether it's doctors or professional people or whatever, lawyers, whatever, they will tell you, well, what you have to do is, and I go, no, I haven't had to do anything since I became an adult. I am so aware that I choose to do things now. I am here for your professional input. Doesn't mean I have to take it. Do we all agree on that? You go to a doctor or a lawyer or whatever for their professional input. You don't have to do what they tell you. And you are entitled to get a second opinion, be it doctors or lawyers or whatever. All right. And I think all too often we forget that awareness of this is my life and my body and my peace of mind. And by the way, you can get, and I've had that happen, where I can get the input. That doesn't mean I have to do anything. I just legally know what my rights are, right? Or, and people saying, oh, yes, you do. And I go, no, I don't. I don't have to do anything. Jody's saying, that's you taking your power back, deciding what you're going to do, but being told what you have to do, not being told what I have to do. No, I want to tell you, anybody who says that to me, but you must do, I go, what did you just say? That I must do something? Are you talking to a 5-year-old or are you talking to me? What? I said, you see, I'm an adult. I get to choose. So thank you for your input. I'll give it some consideration. But I don't have to do anything. I really don't have to do anything. I didn't have to have a mastectomy when I found out I had breast cancer, did I? I chose. And by the way, I didn't. They wanted an instant decision on something, and I said, no, I'm sorry, you don't get an instant decision on that. That's a pretty big thing, you're going to chop off part of my body. I need a couple of days to think about that. I probably will end up saying yes, but I want a couple of days to think about that. I want to process it. Losing part of my body is, it's a big thing. Not like cutting your fingernails, it's like, that's a big part of my body. Now, I know I'll lose a couple of pounds of weight. I like that, but, it's just like, not really. And so if you are busy trying to stop a manipulation and you are aware you're being manipulated, one of the things that I always end up saying, if it goes on and on and on, is what was it about the word no that you didn't understand? I leave that until I've tried everything else. And they go, what? I said, what was it about the word no that you didn't understand? It's a perfectly two-letter word. No. Yeah, but no. No, yeah, buts. No, yeah, buts. The answer is no. So one of the other things I was aware of this week was that I had extra time on my hands. When I say extra time, I want to tell you last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I slept. That told me I was pretty sick. That when you get that sick, where you sort of sleep and you wake up because you need to go to the washroom, or you wake up because you do need to eat something. But then as soon as that's done, you're back sleeping again. And whether it's on the bed or on the couch, it doesn't matter. I spent 3 days doing it. I got some sort of bug. I don't know what it was, and um, who cares what it was? It was just like whatever it was hit me pretty hard. And that's another awareness. When you're taking these drugs and everything else, your immune system is down. And Jody, I know, knows all about that one. When you're taking these heavy duty drugs, your immune system is so busy working with those drugs, that it forgets to protect you in other areas. So, yeah, I'm aware of that. It is said, Aristotle said this, that the ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than mere survival. All right. So the point of this is, will you understand that we choose? If you are aware that you choose not to do something about something or to do something, your life will change. So what I had more time for was obviously to watch more television, but I decided I would watch some documentaries rather than just binge watch the usual stuff. So the first one that I saw was magical. And if any of you've got Netflix, I really recommend that you check it out if you're interested. And you'll find out if you're interested as I talk about you. And what I saw was a documentary called The Blue Zone. Blue as in the color, and zone as to area. The blue zones. And what they said, what this guy did was he decided to research all the areas where people were living to be over 100 years old and see if there was any correlation between what they were, because there were different areas, they're little zones all around the world where people are living well into their hundreds. And it's not unusual to live to 100 in those areas. And so what he wanted to do was to see, was there any correlation to what was happening over here, to what was happening over here, or here, or here. It was fascinating. And he started off in the Mediterranean, not a bad place to start. And we all know about the Mediterranean diet. But what he came up with, I think one of the main takeaways from the whole series was the right lifestyle can add a decade to your life. All right? The right lifestyle. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Also, drink more water, not booze. Drink more, but eat less. So the first thing that he said was what he noticed throughout the zones, and and there was Mediterranean. He went to all sorts of different areas around the world. I'm just trying to think. I'll think about it just now. But it was really fascinating that the whole thing about age. What he said was, it's not about your genes. It's about your lifestyle. And if you choose the right lifestyle, if you get fresh air, if you stay interested in things, if you stay learning things, if you stay, connected, you will live longer. There was no doubt about that. That was a correlation on every one of the zones that he visited. The second lesson was, you are what you eat. And I think we're all aware of that, right? When we're changing, I'm amazed how much I've changed. When I say amazed, I got diabetes, and that required that I change. Diabetes made me aware that I needed to make some basic changes. I didn't have to. They could have put me on the drugs, but I decided to make some basic changes. And now I've made enough changes that I can start, bringing back certain things, and it's not affecting me that much at all. which is pretty interesting. I have lost 12 pounds this year. All right. And I have not been dieting. It's all to do with the way that I now eat. And Jody, I cannot thank you enough for all that you taught me about things like intermittent fasting and stuff like that, because I don't even think about that anymore. Right? And I remember Jody telling me when I first got diabetes, the diabetes diagnosis, and my doctor said, I'm not going to put you on drugs. You've got 3 months to see if you can adjust your diet enough to make a difference. And if you can, then as long as you continue to do that, I won't need to put you on the drugs. And, the amazing thing was that Jody taught me a lot about how to start changing my diet bit. And the things she said, and Jody, I have repeated this so many times to so many people, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You got a long time to work on this. That you got a short time to make some major changes, but you got a long time to tweak it into something that works for you. And I cannot tell you how many people I have shared that knowledge with, and how much, I said, and the other thing Jody said is, you also are allowed to have bad days, So every now and then I'll have what I call my carb day. And, I do it well. I will actually, I'm inclined to do it in the days that I go out and do things. And, I'll pop into the pastry store and I will buy pastry. Or I will reward myself for popping into the grocery store and I will actually stop, at the apple pie. And I go, yeah, I can do that. And so I buy half an apple pie and then I have a slice every night. Or the other week I bought a pound cake with icing on top. A lemon poppy seed pound cake. Oh, it was so good. But I sliced it all up and I froze it. Slice by slice, I froze it. And then every day, at the beginning I knew it was there, so I went and got some. But then after that, I just, forgot about it for a couple of days. And then one day I was thinking, what should I have for dessert? And I go, oh, I got pound cake. The other thing is I found out that Chapman's chocolate covered ice cream, hang on. I don't know what you call these in America, popsicles probably. But for some reason, I can have one of those a day. So, it's about being aware of what I can eat. That was the whole thing. I started off, I started off finding out what I was needed to cut back on. But, basically it's like, what can I have? As you all know, I have a pita every day. 3 ounces of dough I roll out into a pita, and I choose whether to turn that into a pizza or whether I fill the pita with cheese and cucumber and everything else. Sometimes I'll turn it into a cinnamon roll. It's just like I'm allowed my 3 ounces of dough a day. And it's great fun. James Thurber said, let us not look back in anger, nor forward in fear, but around in awareness. Now, I do remember that when in the blue zones they got to Japan, which was a blue zone in Okinawa, I think. When they got there were a couple of things that came out of Okinawa. It was, number one, they have an expression there, which is, obviously you are what you eat, but it says, eat only until you're 80% full. And that is one of the things I am so aware of, is how my eating habits have changed. For example, for me, a burger today is no bun and half a patty with salad. I'm still having a burger. because I'm still having the tomato and I'm still having the cheese on top of the half of the burger. I'm still doing, and I'll even do caramelized onions on top of that. Very tasty. But I don't have to have it the way that it was before. That's how much I've changed thanks to Jodie's tutorage. And it makes me smile now when I look at it. And it allows me to have apple pie afterwards. And so think about that. Only eat until you're 80% full. I thought that was a really nice piece of advice. And now the third thing that came out of it, all the zones, and each zone had their own peculiarities, was that 95 out of the 100 centurions only live to be that old because they have children or grandchildren who care for them, and therefore they receive love and sometimes financial aid in return. Now, that was a whole section in there about what affects our quality of life as we age. What they found, and again, it came up in Japan, is that people who have a reason to get up in the morning live longer, right? So don't stop doing your hobbies. If your husband likes making little wooden um, bird nesting, bird houses, out of reclaimed barn wood, whatever it is, and has got a shed full of them and never sold any, keep encouraging him to continue. If you still have that needlepoint that you have not finished yet, keep going back to it. What they said was the people who continue to do those sort of things will live longer. It is about the craft. It is about using both sides of your brain. It is about using your fingers. It is about continuing and teach other people to do the skills that you have. Jodie's saying here, about the fact that my dietary changes. She said, "You've done the most amazing work. I see how you view your food and craft the most colorful and interesting meals." Yes, Jodie. That was like, I want to know how to make it look more tasty. It's the same thing as I know that if I want to have pasta, I can have pasta every day, as long as I only cook a third of a cup. And then I load it up with vegetables and cheese, which is protein, and other stuff, or an egg, scrambled egg or whatever. I load it up with other things. And, meat no longer is, half, 50% of my plate. First of all, I no longer eat on a dinner plate. I eat on how many of you have done that? I now eat on a side plate. And it's funny because when I see a full-size dinner plate now, I go, I used to fill that thing right up to eat. And most of it was not colorful. You remember that thing about Benji taught me, eat the rainbow. That's a big thing now. And I look at the plate and I go, does it look colorful? Because if it's colorful, the chances are it's probably fairly healthy. So let's go back to this thing. What they said is you have a reason to get up in the morning. If you have a reason, you're not just wasting the day. You're on a mission of something. That mission can be, I'm going to completely tidy up my whole house, and I'm going to do it one step at a time for a year. Remember what Charlotte decided to do. She said she challenged herself to go outside for half an hour for 365 days of the year, and she lives in the eastern part of Canada, which gets pretty darn chilly in the winter. And she said she didn't care whether it was raining or snowing or what it was. She was going to go out every single day for half an hour. Now, do you understand what that did for her? Gave her a reason every day to get up. Now I need to go out, so I got to get up. And then it gave her fresh air. It gave her exercise. It also gave her thinking time. Maybe sometimes she was listening to music, which would then engage different parts of her brain and memories. How many of you know that when you play music, it's memories? I find a new trick when I want to clean up the kitchen at night. I just tell Alexa, play me music from the 50s or 60s, or, play me music from, and I'll just mention some singer. And I do that every night now. Why? Because then I sing along. I go back that far into that genre because I know all the words to those songs. And therefore, I'll sing about 5 songs, so my kitchen will be tidy. I'm aware of that now. If I just have to tidy the kitchen, it's not, it's a pain, but if I can sing while I'm doing it for some reason, it's better. So what they said was the people who were still doing crafts lived longer. They also said that whole business about those people who've got children or grandchildren. But what if you don't? Like I don't have children or grandchildren. I've got a few adopted ones, as you know, Benji and Judy and the children, and and Cisco and Dougie, and people like that. But I created my own family because I didn't have children. And what they said is, if you haven't got children, then have a group. All right, have a group of people that get together for whatever reason and that care about one another. And I'd like to say, if you're a Dear Mama Sal watcher, if you think about it, you have that. There are people that want to hear. There are people that you can vent to. There are people that will support you through the tough times. And so, are you aware of how important that is? That you make the time to be part of a group. And it doesn't matter what sort of group it is. It's people that challenge you. I find it really interesting, for example, joining a group of people who were all taking the same medication as I am. But what I really found was, a new friend through that. And it's delightful. And it turns out that I'm probably helping her more than she's helping me, but that's fine. It gives me a reason to be. So this whole idea about the blue zones, I found fascinating. One of the things that came up that was mind-blowing to me was the steeper your village was. When you listen to this one, the steeper, I think this came up in Italy somewhere, the steeper your village is, the longer you live. Now, here's my whiteboard. That probably doesn't make any sense. But what they found was that if you like in the Mediterranean, it's mostly flat. So people walked a lot, but it was flat. What they found was in certain areas where people were living a long time, a lot of them lived at a higher altitude. The higher the altitude, it was interesting, but the steeper your village was, So the people who lived down here would not live as long as the people who lived up here. And the people down here didn't live as long as these people. Do you understand? The higher the elevation of your village, the longer they lived. And the reason was because when you went to go and visit Mabel next door, you didn't walk flat, you had to walk up a hill, which was cardio. Right? And people don't think twice about doing it. It is cardio. But it's not exercise. It's, hey, I'm going up to have coffee with Mabel. But Mabel lives 3 houses uphill. I found that fascinating that they could see that correlation. And then I thought, it is so true. And the other thing is, the people who joined groups, all right, whatever that group was, and they met regularly, they got to share things, all right, as we do, and they got to solve problems together. It's like it's not just you solving a problem, it's the whole group of minds coming together. And then there were the groups of people who were saying, well, that I go out and tend my garden every day. Or there was the guy that went out to, shepherds, right? Every day, just out looking after the sheep, lived far longer than the person sitting behind a desk. Are you getting the message here? If you don't use it, you lose it. And it's not about exercise, it's about movement. So if you join a group and you're dancing once a week, right? You are doing rhythm, you are keeping your muscles going, you're doing all sorts of things. If you are joining a group, and you're all quilting, you're problem solving because you're busy talking. You are using, fine motor skills, things like that. I'm pretty certain you can see the logic in this, but it was amazing to watch this program. And so remember, if you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, was the main thing. All right? Not just to survive another day, but this is about what can I do? Right? What am I going to do? As you know, I spend a lot of time now making things like soaps and so forth, but it's also getting close to the season. Hold on a second. So it's time for my Christmas villages, all right? So I wonder if you can see that, or is the light the wrong way? But I decided I'm going to perfect my Christmas villages. And, I decided to buy the domes so you could see all of the thing without them getting dusty or without different people touching them. All right. But now you could see them. And this is about every time I go near them, I go, what's the next step? What's the next thing I want to do? And it's not about, it's about the creativity of it. It's the problem solving of it. Really, really important. And when you think about things and you are aware what joy you can have. For example, I cut these out during the day with my die cutting machine, and I'm not even there. First thing in the morning, I take my coffee there and I load up all the mats to put the paper on the mats, and then I'll decide which houses do I want to do today. And then I'll start feeding those mats in, and I'll just press the button and go away and get on with my life. But when I do my rotation, right, and when I go around and do one thing in the craft room, I go there, take that mat out, put a new one in, press the button, and go. And then in the evening, while I'm binge watching, I construct them. And so by the end of every evening, I have achievement. Really important, all right? Small little baby steps. Now, one of the things I learned about getting sick, by the way, was the fact that my pharmacy can actually prescribe antibiotics. I didn't know that. And I'm not sure if that is true in the US, but for certain conditions, a pharmacy can, here in Canada, can give you antibiotics. That was a learning moment for me. And by the way, it might have been 3 weeks getting sick. It took me another week just to get healthy. One of the joys that I had about being sick was I was aware that I didn't have to feel any guilt whatsoever about watching the US Open. Right? It was just like, that's, you're not well, so you can just lie there and watch it and enjoy it. And I did. I've also found out I'm pretty good about picking really good players before they get really good. And before the rest of the world sees them, I see them and I go, I like that. I picked out Carlos Alcaraz a year before he became the number one out of nowhere. And now I have the new one, the American Ben. Ben. I picked him out way before he came out of nowhere and got all the way to the quarterfinals of the, not even seeded, all the way to the quarterfinals of the US Open. So, that gives me great pleasure. I love watching talent. Talent fascinates me. So I don't think that altogether it's a waste of time. And, awareness comes slowly, piece by piece. One of the things that um, M. Scott Peck, Children of the Lie, I think. Anyway, what he said was the greatest awareness comes slowly, piece by piece, right? The path of spiritual growth is a path of lifelong learning. The experience of spiritual power is basically a joyful one. So I make sure that I enjoy my day. I'm aware that that's my responsibility. It's not up to somebody else to make me happy. That is my job. And if I don't make time to be happy, then what's the point? Right? If all I'm doing is stuff for other people, hello, I'm being manipulated. So I make time to do the things I like. Let me see who said this because it's a nice quote. Sarah Ben Brethnach, unusual name. Whatever we are waiting for, peace of mind, contentment, grace, the inner awareness of simple abundance. It will surely come to us, but only when we are ready to receive it with an open and grateful heart. One of the things I am aware of is how I start my day. And I start my day now by reading 3 simple affirmations. I am well. I am tidy. And I am at peace. I start every day with it. And I try to make sure that I also finish every day reminding myself of that. So I go to bed reminding myself that I am well, I'm tidy, and that I am at peace. And I check in during different parts of the day and ask myself, do I feel well? Am I tidying things as I go through my day? I'm really getting good at that. One of the things that I've learned is if I want to tidy the kitchen, I bring in a tote and everything that doesn't belong in the kitchen goes in the tote. And then that tote goes to the middle of the house and everything that belongs in the middle of the house gets put away. And then it goes to the back of the house and everything that belongs in the back of the house gets put away. And then it comes back to the kitchen. Because I found my cat, what's your catch-all area? All right, maybe it's your living room. Keep a tote in the living room and so that you can just huck things that don't belong into the living room into the tote. It's amazing. I'm so aware of how much tidier my life is just by doing that. And also, those of you who've watched me for a long time, you know that I work on the one step at a time thing. So this whole business about, well, while I'm in the bathroom, what's one step I can take to make it tidier, cleaner, or whatever, all right? I found that I suddenly decided that, my deck is a good place for me to go and get some fresh air because it desperately needed tidying. And I spent quite a few moments out there in my rotation. And I vacuumed it all and I tidied it up. And boy, I cannot believe the difference. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So there's something about getting tidier that also I found is very, very important for me. What about you guys? And again, try not to work in absolutes. In other words, you don't have to tidy it all. Just know that you did something in the right direction. And it's amazing what it will do for your psychology. Travis Bradbury said that emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and in others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and your relationships. Awareness is the key. And I think that knowing that I don't have to finish a task, and it's nice to finish it. Yep, I will be very happy when I finished unpacking. But that it's been a long, hard journey. But boy, when I walk into that shed now and I can actually stretch my arms out, like before to get into the shed, you had to shuffle sideways because there were boxes here and boxes behind me. Now I can not only walk straight down to the end, I can actually put my hands out. That's how much room I've got. And now we're getting to the stage that now we're putting boxes of sorted, organized stuff back into the shed. It's really quite exciting. But we've done it 2 hours a week for the whole summer. So that's another awareness, which is, focus on something. Don't just say, oh, I really need to get to that. It's just like before I eat dinner, I am going to tidy up one thing in wherever. Or before, I binge watch. I am now aware that putting on a couple of thousand steps just requires that I sit at my little mini bike. I've got one of those pedal bikes that go under a desk. If I sit there for half an hour while I binge watch something, that'll put 2,000 steps onto my day. It, keeps the circulation going well in my feet. I also do weights at the same time. Amazing. So the thing is to make it part of your routine, and that's the awareness. If you make it part of your routine. So I now have a time of day, which is 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, I double check how many steps have I done today. And if I'm not anywhere near my goal, then I go, okay, fine, time to go and do half an hour on Billy the bike. That is my awareness. That's all it takes is half an hour sitting there, and you don't really think about it, right? You're just watching television and you're busy pedaling away. And I found that I think I've got 3-pound weights going at the moment, and I'm now already researching getting ready to get heavier weights because, I started off with 1 pound and I just do simple things, like this. And by the way, one of the best ones is just going out this way. Do stretching these muscles here is one of the things that as we age, we forget to do. We spend our life like this because of computers and everything else. And so that is the most important stretch. And if you want to do it another way, I found really useful. Now, as you're going through a door, hold on to the door jamb and just lean right in. And it will stretch all those muscles. Make sure you've got a good grip on that door before you do that, though. Otherwise, you'll fall flat on your face. And don't say I told you so. So, to me, this is like I'm beginning to build upper body strength. It's not good. I also am aware that getting up from the floor is difficult for me. But something interesting happened yesterday where I wanted to get a whole lot of things done, and I had a big list of things I wanted Ciora to do when she came because she comes on Thursdays, and she didn't come. And so after an hour went past and I was aware she not only hadn't come, but she hadn't contacted me, which is unusual, I sent her a text and said, "Are you okay?" Because that was so unlike her. And she actually wrote back and said, "I am so sorry." She was busy doing something somewhere else and she clean forgot it was Thursday. Now, have you ever done that? Yep. I said, not a problem. But then I went and I said, well, let's have a look at this list of things that I think I can't do. And that's why I wanted Ciora to do them. And I went, what if I had to do them? Could I do them? You remember that mentality? If they paid me $1 million to do it, could I do it? And so I said, the reason I didn't want to do it, for example, was I had 2 heavy totes. I decided to take all my art stuff, all the paints and stuff that I do with my artwork. Because I'm busy doing soaps and Christmas villages, I'm obviously not going to be doing art this winter. So I put them all into 2 big totes. Now that stuff gets to be pretty heavy. So what I wanted was Ciora to move them for me. And then I went, well, she's not here, but they're still going to get moved. And I could hear that voice in my head that said, don't do anything stupid now, Sal, and hurt yourself. So I went, nope, I'm not going to. So I went and got my dolly, and I got the first tote and put it on the dolly. And then I wheeled it into the studio and I took it off the dolly and just quietly slid it under the table, where that table that I bought recently, right at the back. And then I went back, got the second one, used the dolly, and took it in, got that done. I was so proud of myself, and it was just like, okay, what's the next thing on the list of things I didn't think I could do? And it was amazing because I got quite a few of the things done. Yeah, I got a box into the shed that I thought was perhaps too heavy for me originally, but I found out no, it wasn't. And I said, it's not that it's heavy. Look at it as, strength building. People pay money to go to a gym to do this, so just do it carefully. Be aware of your back. Stand properly. Pick it up properly. And and then it was all about being aware of the mentality. And I felt really that I had accomplished a lot of things that I probably wouldn't. The other thing was that I needed to connect up to, what do you call them, power bars, with lots of sockets in them. I wanted 2 different ones in my studio for the getting ready for the winter, because to me, it's like, okay, I need my shrink wrap and everything else. I want it all to be in that studio, not to use my kitchen for doing things like that. So now to get the power bar in, I had to crawl on the floor under the table. And I'm going, the most important thing to be aware of is how are you going to get back up again? So, it's getting down is not easy, but it's getting back up that's really a problem. So what am I aware of? My core strength is missing. All right. It's not that I can't do it. I just need to be really careful about how I do it. So what I do is 2 things. And I've worked out the system while I'm working on my core. That's why I'm doing the weights. But what I know is I have one, hang on a second. This was a cane leftover from, it's one of those ones that stands up on its own like that. And Yvonne gave it to me. It was, when Papa was alive, he had it. And it's a really useful thing for me to have, because if I have to get down on the floor, I do 2 things. Number one is I get this. And the other thing I get is a small step stool, one about two levels up. And so now I can lean on here, and keep steadying myself and get down onto the floor. Make sense? And then when I want to get back up again, I can put my hand on the low step of the step stool and then use this to help me get back up again. And, it's like, it's not pretty, but I can do it. And it's getting better because I'm getting more strength. The interesting thing is it's about my feet. And that's why I really do know that I need to do more and more on the bike. Because what I'm noticing is that the difficulty sometimes is to get that foot to come up and flat so you can stand on it. Does that make sense? When you're down on the floor, it's interesting to see, for example, I lost the ability to be able to, I can kneel on the floor, but I can't sit back onto my heels. Can you? And so that is my next goal, is to slowly start rebuilding the stretch in those muscles so that I can have more use of those muscles to help me get up in and off the floor. Awareness. So how am I going to do that? I can either complain about it, or I can say, what do I need to do? And luckily, we got the internet. All right. Now, one of the things I know is one of the easiest way to stretch those muscles, I found anyway, is I just literally, stand about 2 feet away from the countertop, and I just stretch those muscles, just lean in. All right. And it forces me, I push my knees out, and that's forcing me to stretch those muscles out at the Achilles level. And then the other one, of course, is to do these. All right. And you don't have to do a lot. Slowly, slowly build the strength. And remember the rotation idea, right? Just do a little bit every day. It will be better. One of the things they say is that, if you're doing weight training or whatever, don't do it every day, right? You don't need to do it every day. What you need to do is about 3 times a week. So for those of you who know me well, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to stay as healthy as I can and still have fun eating. And then I thought about the awareness of that it gets pretty darn lonely in the winter, all right? And because it just is. And I've decided I am going to make a conscious effort this winter to invite people over. I might not be able to drive to them, but this is called, hey, you make the effort to come here, I will cook you dinner. And it will be good. And the other thing was, I think I told you about my agreement with Doug. I had a birthday week. I had a very serious discussion with Doug about the fact that, we need to get together more often, Doug. And I'm sorry, but you need to make time. And because who knows how much time we have left. So therefore, could you please do me a favor? Jody's saying, I'll be right there. Could we have mac and cheese, please? Oh, God, that was so good, wasn't it? I've got to show you guys. I don't think Jody, what was it I said I'll explain it all on tomorrow? Did I explain it already? Hang on a second. Pictures. So this was... It's here. So this was my mac and cheese topped with bacon, cheese, and grape tomatoes. And then this is what it looked like when I served it. and asked me how much was left. So so anyway, I had this discussion with Doug, and he agreed. All right. So I said, Doug, I know you have to eat. So therefore, maybe we just have a meal together once a month, right? So we can, just break bread and chit chat. Remember the community thing about living longer, the community thing, really important. So guess what? It's been a month. It's coming up a month, right? So what I did was I didn't sit there and go, he hasn't booked a date yet. I just wrote to him and I said, well, I know you're really busy in October, so therefore, what day next week would suit you for lunch or dinner? Preferably Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And guess what? He's coming for dinner on Wednesday. And then I said, what would you prefer? Would you like a roast? Because most people don't make the time to make a roast. Or would you just like to have, the cheese board type thing, where you can pick what you want, and a charcuterie board. And, the interesting thing was that he chose to pick and choose his food. And that's great. And I love to do that because it just gives, I will do some steak. I'll cook a steak and cut that up, and some chicken in case he wants chicken, some bacon. It's just like it makes it, and then lots of cheeses and fruit and salad and so forth. So to me, it's like it's a lot of food in one way, but it's enough food for the week. So once I've prepared it, I've done the food for the week. So here's the thing. The awareness part of your life goes on a daily basis. To me, the most amazing thing is there are no coincidences, and that I am constantly aware of the universe telling me things. For example, when I got sick, I didn't fight it. I just went, okay, my body wants to rest, so let me do that well. And I ended up sleeping for 3 days. And then I could feel, well, I feel a lot better, but I don't have any energy. So now, what do we know? If you want energy, you need to do things, all right? Because if you notice, the more you do, the more energy you have. So then I got into the awareness of, all right, if you're not getting up and doing a couple of things, so every hour I'd get up and do a small rotation, maybe 1 or 2 rooms, not all of them, and things like that. And what I found was bit by bit, because I was doing that, I was getting stronger and healthier. And I now feel a whole lot better. The other thing I've noticed is that this new drug, I am losing more hair. No doubt about it. Jody, I know you know that story really well. And so I will be discussing with you what you've learned about that. But hey, they make really great wigs these days. So worst comes to the worst, right? And the other great news that I have is that Benji and Judy said they're coming up to visit me. And, that is so exciting for me. And so we're going to get together, and I'm going to get to see all the children because, there are 2 of the children I've never met. I've never met Leah or Isabella. And so I get to actually meet the whole lot now. And that made me think, I think I am going to go and buy myself a new outfit for the fall. And it's not a waste of money. The last time when did I buy an outfit last time? And the thing is not to fall into the trap of buying something that's going to look really good to go downtown, but rather to get something that will be really functional for me afterwards. This is something that I can wear all the time, not just to go visit. So it won't necessarily be for that visit. It's about what am I going to buy that cheers me up. Jody, I know you're doing that, right? Jody's lost so much weight that as she was saying, her tops now look like night dresses because she's lost so much weight. And so she's going to go out and buy herself a couple of new tops. And, that's not a waste of money. And I know that we think it is. But again, you've lost 200 pounds. Jody, imagine that. And I'm happy that I've lost 12. Now, we know that you had the sleeve operation, the gastric sleeve. However, you are doing all the right things and continuing to lose weight. Now, we also know that you're not a well puppy, right? That you've been really sick. And that also probably is contributing. So my question to you is, Jody, are you able to eat more easily now? Because I know it was a real problem for a long time. I think from what you've been telling me that your diet is changing, like you're eating different foods now than you were. Is that correct? And so, as I look at it and go, I think the awareness, I've said this to so many people, that whenever I think about, you know, how much food do I really need in my life? How much food do we really need? I remember that Jody lived on bone broth for about 3 months, and it's just like, and she made it through. All right, so Jody's saying yes that the range of food is still an issue, and it's being looked into. Yeah, and she's having. They're going to check her upper tract to see what's going on there. They think she might have a hiatus hernia or something going on. But Jody, all your life you wanted to be 200 pounds lighter, and you got there. I keep saying, given the choice, would you do it again? That was my question. Because I hear people say, oh, I think I'll go and have that gastric bypass thing done. And I go, you know something? Before you do, you may want to talk to a couple of people who've had it done. Because as a medical reason to do it, which Jody had, and a friend of mine had a medical reason to do it, it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think enough people understand just how challenging that is. And I think it's really good that before you can have it, they make you literally reduce your food down to liquids. Because if you can't do that, then you can't have the surgery. And Jody's saying, for all the problems that she's had, listen to this, I would absolutely do it again. It's a lot of work. It is not an easy fix. No, you don't just take a little pill and, carry on eating. So, Jody, I look at it now as well and go, I don't know whether the reason I'm losing the weight is because of the change of drug or even taking the drug. That's interesting, isn't it? Because when I think about it, I started taking the letrozole in February. And that's basically when I started to lose weight. Interesting. So, but I'm delighted that I'm 12 pounds down and I intend, I've got lots of room to do a lot more. But again, if I don't move, and that's part of my rotation, get off your butt, right? If I don't use my muscles, I'm not going to lose weight. If I don't use my core, and that's why I'm doing the weights. If I don't strengthen up my core, then I'm not going to be able to do a lot of things, right? If I don't strengthen my legs, I'm not going to be able to do a lot of things. So it's not just about, oh, by the way, I think I've actually got to the stage where my boobs now are slightly farther out than my stomach, especially if I breathe in. So I'm definitely losing some weight here. I should measure, shouldn't I? Yeah. But it's still a lot of fat right here, right? And that's just what I've been eating. So I look at it now and I'm really happy that, I've sort of got a system that works for me and it includes good things. There we go. So be aware. Awareness is the beginning. And once you are aware, once you're conscious of what you're doing, right or wrong, remember there is a difference between intellectually understanding it and then owning it. Remember, how many years did I try to stop smoking? I was aware of the problem, but and was aware of all the things that were available to me to help me stop. Somewhere in here, I was not ready to quit. And then the perfect storm, you will remember 10 years ago, going down to visit Juliana in a new house. And I went, I am not going to take my stinky clothes there. And I literally fumigated my suitcases, my suitcase, and all my clothes. And that morning, I got up and I showered so there wasn't tobacco in my hair. And then I fumigated my car with ions, stuff. And then I drove down there, and I haven't had a puff since. And Juliana's old enough now because she's old enough to really understand, and I want to give her a big hug and thank her, because if she hadn't come into my life, I don't know whether that perfect storm would have happened. But it was just the right time. I was aware that I really wanted to quit, and I was aware of my motivation, and I was aware that I could do it for a weekend. But the interesting thing was, on the way back, I didn't stop at the duty free to pick up a couple of cartons, and never have. And so there we go. So everybody be more aware every day of the coincidences. We'll talk more about this on Sunday. This is DearMamaSal saying thank you so much again for all your support during the times when I'm not quite up to it. I don't mean to let you down, but there are days where it just isn't possible. I just don't have the what do you call it? Mental wherewithal in some ways. If I over stress myself or whatever. But I'm feeling great. I've got to say that I'm really feeling great. You probably can hear that in my voice. I'm definitely over whatever it was that was bugging me. And I am just so grateful to you all for being here and helping us help other people see these things on a weekly basis. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, have a wonderful. It was a lid, nothing serious. Um, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Sunday afternoon. Jody's saying you don't let us down ever. It's most important you don't let yourself down, my friend. Yep, I quite agree, and that's what I'm learning. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, we'll see you on Sunday. Thank you for your help, Jody and Jeannie, and to the rest of you, warm hugs, and really be so aware of what you are doing every moment of the day. Don't waste it. Bye bye for now.